All right, how's everybody doing tonight? Great, wonderful, perfect. All right, let's go and get started. Tonight we're going to jump right into the reading, which you would have done before class, because the first thing we're going to do here in just a second is get into GitHub and you start using GitHub. I'll do a demo of GitHub. Then we'll go from GitHub to in the demo to right into your final app discussion. Final app discussion is just that. You're going to be discussing your final app amongst each other, deciding maybe even before you leave tonight what your final app's going to be, and also deciding what group you're going to be a part of if you're going to be a part of a group. So this whole week is devoted to learning how to use GitHub, creating your final app idea, and submitting your final app idea. That way you can actually start working on it this week. That's the basic crux of this whole week, is getting you what is GitHub, how we're going to use it, and then what's my final app that I'm going to work on, because that's something you're going to have a number of weeks to work on until the end of the semester. And I want to get you as early as possible thinking about your final app and thinking about what type of app you're going to create. So let's go ahead and start talking about GitHub first, what it is. As it says here, GitHub gives you online access to all source control and ability to share that code with others. GitHub is basically, like it says, just source control. Source control in programming is controlling your source. Your source is your code, okay? And GitHub is the main repository from this point forward. In fact, we've been using it since week 1. All of your assignment, demos, examples are all been linked from GitHub. We have a GitHub account, Rock Valley does, called iOS course, which has been in existence for about 3 years now. And so both my GitHub repository, students that have taken this class, GitHub repositories have all been uploaded to that GitHub source. So GitHub is an online way to access your code. And the way it works is every time you're through working, you submit and sync your code to GitHub. You go to another Mac, you download that source, work on it. When you're done, sync and submit your code to GitHub. So GitHub is the main repository for regardless of where you work. If you're remoting into here, if you're working from your Macs at home, doesn't matter. Your source is going to be all controlled from GitHub. All right. GitHub does have a Mac client and a PC client and even an iOS client for where you can basically view your code. GitHub allows you to, when you submit code, see what's called different versions of that code. So tonight when we do our little demo, I'll do one for you on the overhead, then I'm going to have you submit something into GitHub. Your very first time submitting something into GitHub, that'll be version 1 of that project you submit. You make a change tomorrow on it, submit it to GitHub, that'll be version 2, so on and so forth. You can view all your versions. You can roll back versions. For the way we're going to use it this semester, you will not ever need to roll back, but you could if you wanted to. It's a little bit more advanced to do that. So you're going to stay probably at the beginner's level of GitHub this semester, which is just syncing all your assignments from this point on to GitHub. I'll get your usernames tonight and collect them, and that's how I'll get your assignments each week. You'll just basically submit from this point on for assignments, done. I'll go to your GitHub account and download your assignment from your GitHub account. And so that's how it's going to work. It's pretty simple. Now, GitHub has been created by developers for developers. It can sync all types of files, not just Xcode, but any file can be used on GitHub. A Word document, PDF document, movies, music, whatever the content that your source is, GitHub can control. Also, GitHub has built-in features like web page creation that you'll do this semester here in the next couple weeks. When you create your final app idea this week and figure out what it is, you're going to create a web page using a GitHub account. And I'll share a story real simply about how easy it is to create a GitHub account and some use cases. This guy got engaged to be married. He was a programmer, set up a GitHub page for his wedding announcement and engagement announcement. And in a couple weeks, he just let it sit there, didn't really do anything with it. He just put his wife's, his fiance's name up there, some pictures, the date when they're getting married, where they're getting married, and that's about it. Nothing real fancy. 2 weeks later, he came back. It was all changed and looked really nice and professional. And over 1,200 people around the world had began playing with his public GitHub account, because that's what you'll be using this semester. And because it's public, anybody can come in and submit things to it and make changes to it. And that's what just happened. Over 1,200 graphic designers, students, grandmas, grandpas, just novices in graphics and layout, literally made his website really professional. It was a collaboration of over 1,200 people in about a 2-week period of time. He showed it to his bride-to-be, and she was really impressed. And he thought for just a second, do I take credit for this or do I tell her the truth? Well, he told her the truth and shared his story with the development community, showing the development community the power of GitHub. And that's just it. Everything that I would say 90% of the code I create is on GitHub publicly for people to use and reuse. Developers around the world, China, Germany, Japan, New York, LA, Florida, that have been doing this for a living for a long time or as a novice, also submit their code to GitHub. And anybody and everybody can search for different types of apps. Say you're doing an app on video creation for an iPad. You can search GitHub and probably find 100 apps out there with the code and everything and examples and step-by-step what they did and how they did it to get you started out. And so one day you will return the favor, and hopefully this semester you'll begin to return that favor by submitting apps you create or app you create this semester, which is your final app. And so as all these developers are submitting their code to GitHub, it creates a resource that is unlike any other resource in the world. And so because of that, it's constantly growing, morphing, changing. And there's 2 types of accounts you can have at GitHub. One is public. That's what we'll be using this semester. Everything you submit this semester will be public. What that means is everybody can access your code, everybody can use your code, and everybody can suggest changes to your code. Now, the story I shared earlier, there was, in 2 weeks period of time, all these changes have been made, but he had to apply all these changes since he was the owner. Even though it's public, people could just suggest changes. Once he applied all those changes, he had the final product. And so you as the owner of your GitHub account, folks can submit comments, changes, change requests, bugs, whatever it is, and then you can apply those if you want to or not. And so we'll be using it in a public form. Now, the reason I had you set it up on number 2 as a education, what that gives you is 5 private repos. Let's talk about repos, what those are. Repos stands for repository, and repository is your code. So the folder you've been using this semester each week on the Mac desktop, in your download folder, wherever it's been, that's going to be now committed to GitHub and linked and submitted and become what's called a repository. Now here's how simple it is to create a repository in GitHub. You take a simple folder from Mac or PC, Linux, whatever. You fire up GitHub first, log it in. You drag that folder into the GitHub environment. It says, this isn't a repository. Do you want to make one? Yeah. You make it, name it, commit and sync it, decide whether you want it to be public or private. And again, for all of our assignments, they're going to be public. But let's say for your final app, you might want to make it private this semester, just so you can work on it without anybody tampering with your code and getting any ideas from you, if it might be something you might want to eventually put to the App Store. And that's what I want you to use it for. And so the public stuff that I will get from you each week will be in a public format, the assignment you submit, but that doesn't mean you can't create a private one of your own to keep working on. I won't have access to that. That's yours to see and to keep working on. Now you can give me access, which you'll learn how to do tonight, but you don't have to. And so public and private are 2 ways you can have a repository. And repositories, again, are codeless in nature, meaning they're not tied to any language. It's just a source control. GitHub is a source control machine. It's all it is. It doesn't really care what it is you're submitting. It keeps a version of everything. those of you in a Microsoft world, or maybe in the Ruby Rails world, or maybe you've been in other languages where they had source control, it's the same concept. But this one's different in the fact that it's totally open source, available for free. Now you can pay for more private accounts through github.com, and there are other repository type apps out there online. This is by bar none the best that most developers in iOS use, but there are other competitors out there, and I've used all of them. And this one's the easiest for students to begin using from day one. Now, from step one, or before step one, where it says everyone needs to complete these steps, so whether you have a Mac or PC at home, you're going to complete steps 1, which is create and install the software. Step 2, create a GitHub account. Now, the reason I have the PC folks download and install the software is you can, if you're remoting into these Macs, which some of you are, you can submit your code via email like you've been doing to yourself, and then from your PC, you can do all your sync and commits on your own time, okay? That way you're not, that way you're using it on your PC environment and getting used to using it. And what's cool about it also is you can use GitHub for other things. So I recommend and encourage you to use GitHub for your other classes here on campus. You're doing a paper, create a repo for it. You're doing a project for art, create a repo for it. You're doing a project for video, create a repo for it. The only downside to the repos when it gets to video is because of the nature and the size of it, it's going to take a while to upload. But beyond that, it will upload, and you are basically untapped as far as size goes, unlimited on space, but it will take time. So how do they make money? They make money because there are commercial accounts, if you didn't notice when you were signing up, that you could pay for. And so millions of developers like myself have commercial accounts, but I also have education accounts too that I use with students to teach this class and some other classes I teach here on campus that we use repos with. The other thing repos are good for is collaboration at work. If you're working on a project, you can create a private repo amongst work coworkers to work on a project and not have to use something like maybe Dropbox you might be using in the past. The benefit of doing this versus Dropbox is it keeps a version of all your changes and check sets and change requests, and it has its own built-in wiki, and it has its own built-in web page creation. And it's called Jekyll code, by the way, that it uses, and it's real easy code to learn on how to create a link and how to create a URL and bring in a video and bring in a YouTube or bring in a picture, whatever. But you'll learn all that this week when you're playing with the help menu, as we'll go over in a second in GitHub. But GitHub, the reason I devote this week to GitHub in your final lap is so you actually begin playing with GitHub. And I want you to play with it. At least 3 to 4 hours playing with GitHub and submitting stuff to it. Anything to it, doesn't really matter what it is. Everything we've done up to this point, submit to it, okay? And you'll learn how to do that tonight. Does that make sense? You'll also, I encourage you this week to delete repos this week. Not only upload and create them, delete them, because that's another thing you need to learn how to do. You need to learn how tonight, you'll learn how tonight to create from a repo that's already created, convert it from a public to a private, and from a private to a public. We'll go over tonight how to create a simple web page in GitHub. So basically, in a nutshell, that's what GitHub is. That's how we're going to use it this semester. And every student pretty much that's been through this class continues to use GitHub because I get notifications of their changes. And that's the other great thing is once you're part of a group that you will be after tonight, you'll be part of the iOS course group on GitHub. Any changes you make, if you're on that team in GitHub, I get notification and your team gets notification. So if after tonight you decide to be on a team with somebody to create your final lap, you will ask them into yours, they will ask you into theirs, you'll create your repo, and then those notifications, whenever somebody submits a change or an upload, that everybody in that group will get an email. And the email will consist of what you committed and what comment you made, okay? And so let's go ahead and get started then on GitHub. Step 1, hopefully you had a chance to do, which was create a new GitHub account with your @student.rockvalleycollege.edu email address. It will ask you to create a username. And here in just a second, I'll show you where to submit that if you haven't already done so on the next page. Next step is you'll go to that link to request a free .edu account. If you're not logged in, or if you haven't created an account, it will prompt you to do so on that page. Then third is download GitHub for Mac or PC. And then there is some course documents basically on how to do it right there on number 3, just gives a direct link to it. Once it's installed on your Mac or PC, go ahead and log in. You're going to have 2 screens to fill in with your name, your email you use to set up on your account. When it gets to the screen to search for local repository, do not do it. So what I'd like everybody to do now is, from your Mac that you're currently on, whether it's your laptop or the ones in here you're working on the bottom row of your Mac, there is some icons. And one of those icons is a GitHub icon that looks like this. Click on that GitHub icon, and you're going to log in with your credentials and follow the steps on the screen. And I'll come around one by one, and yours is right there. Yep, and the Macs that are in here is already installed. There. Yep, your icon looks a little different than mine. That one right there. As soon as it comes up, you're going to have to create a new account or a log into account. Yep. And then you go up to the GitHub or file menu. Yep. And go to preferences. GitHub preferences, I believe it is. You go to GitHub preferences on the menu GitHub and then go to preferences. That's where you log in. GitHub preferences. So click on GitHub, then preferences. Excuse me? No, you need to do it from the GitHub app on your Mac.
So if I'm already logged in, it just comes up with my password.
Are you logged into GitHub on the Mac? Yeah. Okay. Well, go to GitHub preferences and let me see. Very top. You're not logged in on the Mac. No, all the way to the left. GitHub on the left. Then go to preferences. The first time you log in, it will ask you to scan your Mac for repositories. Do not do that. Then once you successfully log in like Andrew did, you'll see your icon that says github.com login with a sign out button to the right of it. So again, when you fire up GitHub, go to the GitHub menu on the top left corner of your Mac, click preferences, and log in. Nope, GitHub on your Mac. Go there. Okay. Yeah, you'll need to do that later. So go ahead and do this with me now, and I'll have to log in with mine so we can go on. So go to GitHub and then preferences. And I'll log in with mine.
We allow the login for confidential information to allow it.
Yes, allow everything. And these are on deep freeze. They don't save any of your credentials. Okay, there I am right there. So you're going to be me for night. Okay. So just keep it where it's at, where you see your name. Good. Don't go any further. And I'll log mine in here in just a second to where it'll be right where yours is. We'll walk around and make sure everybody has a GitHub screen with your login information. Cool. Anybody else need help getting access? Okay, cool. All right. I'm going to go ahead and go on from my Mac here, up here on the screen. We'll switch over to the Big Mac. Okay. Now I'm just going to use this Mac here to log in to be where you guys are at, and then I'm going to switch over to my MacBook in just a second, but I want to make sure everybody is on the same page before I do that. Okay, so everybody on the Macs in here, if you've never done this before, should look like this, okay? If you get a prompt to always allow, when you guys come in and use these Macs, you will have to say always allow. okay, then you can, if you're on this screen and you see what I see, but your name is in place of my name, and you see the sign out button, click the red X right up here. Click the red X. And then you should see two sections, one called this computer, and then one called github.com. And below github.com will be your username. Everybody see that? If you don't see that, look to your neighbors so they can help you. Okay, now I'm going to switch screens to my MacBook. I want to make sure everybody saw that before I did this. So I've got quite a bit more on this than yours, so that's why I wanted to do that. Okay, so your screen's going to go a little bit different than mine, those that are in here. Those of you that download it on your Macs, it looks like mine, but those of you that are on the Macs in here, might look a little different. But the one thing that should look the same is underneath GitHub, it should have your username. If you click on your username just once, it's going to bring up the repository or the any repositories you might have on there. Now I'm going to switch over to the other Mac to show you what yours, if you have anything on yours, what it might look like. So you can see when I clicked on ChewCon, that's my personal account. I've got all of these actually on my repo. If I click on one, just select it, okay, just select it. I can actually, to the right of this, if you notice, there is a button to the right of mine that says clone to computer. What that means, if I was to click on this, it would literally take that application from github.com, that repo, and it would ask me where to save it on my local Mac that I'm on right now, okay? I'm not going to do that on this Mac, but I am in just a second. Now notice I also am a part of Code for Rockford, which is a local group to code apps for local municipality and government facility. So these two are Code for Rockford. We're working on a couple apps there as a group. We're working on one called Adopt a Hydrant, where folks, this is using Ruby on Rails, by the way, they can adopt a hydrant and paint it and take care of it just like it's theirs. Barrel Dodger is an app where they can basically call in or use this app to submit to the city when they come up against craters in the road. Then Rockford Answers, it's an iOS app that they can, and a web app where folks will be able to ask questions like, where do I get driver's license here in Rockford? And that's an app in repository. I'm working with about 12 other developers from all over Rockford. We're doing it at no cost. We're not charging for it. Then Whiteboards is just a whiteboard app of images of what we're doing. And then iOS Course, this is our course repo. And let me resize the screen just a little bit here. So in iOS Course is all of the repos that have been put in here since I started this. And there's also going to be some in here even from this semester, okay? And so these are repos for week by week stuff, apps we've done for faculty, student apps they've done for their final assignments. You might remember this one, my faves. Swift was one we just did recently. That's in there. So I'm going to switch over to the other screen. And now what I'm going to do is talk about how to quickly create a GitHub. And you're going to do it with me, actually. You're going to do it with me. It's not real hard. What I'd like you to do is minimize everything on your Mac desktop to your Mac desktop. So click on the little yellow buttons on your forms till you get to your Mac desktop. Okay? We're going to just create a real quick repo here. First repo we're going to create is just going to be a folder. Second repo we're going to create is an Xcode project. So we're going to take two repos in just a second. So from everybody down to your Mac desktop, just do a control, press and hold the control key on your Mac keyboard, and then click anywhere on your Mac keyboard to create a brand new folder. As soon as you see the right click, select new folder, and I want you to name it your last name. last name, and go ahead and put in there, last name first, GitHub. Last name first, GitHub. That's fine. Nothing doesn't have to be exactly like mine. Just make sure you create a folder and it's empty. Has nothing in it right now. Everybody got that? Now, here's a tricky part. Not real tricky, but just something to learn. Take this folder. Anytime you're getting ready to put something on GitHub, the easiest thing to do on your Mac or PC is take that folder, wherever it might be, and drag it to the right side of your screen. Whether you're on a Mac or PC, it just doesn't really matter. Because some of you might use this GitHub at home and your PCs as well. So with that folder on the right side of your screen, I want you to go back to and bring up that GitHub app to where it's up in the middle of your Mac. And you can resize it like I'm doing right now. You can resize that screen to where it's about like mine. Doesn't have to be exactly like mine. Just resize it to where you can see the app and you can also see the folder that you just created. I'll give you a second to do that. Okay, everybody got that? So you see your folder here, app here. Now, all you need to do, if you want to watch me do it and then you do it, it might be better. I'll do it a couple times. The first time around, I'm just going to take this folder, drag it anywhere into the repo. Now, you'll notice as I hover this folder over GitHub, I have to put it in a gray area somewhere. It won't work if I put it over a file or anything. It has to be in a gray area of GitHub. It'll also work on the top part, but I like to do it down here towards the bottom. And you'll notice when I put it here, it has a little plus green symbol that shows up, right? If I release my mouse, it's going to say this folder is not a repository. Go ahead and do that till you see that prompt and don't go any further. Again, click the folder, drag it over GitHub. When you see the little green plus, release it until you see this prompt and then just hang tight and look at me when you got that done.
I missed how to get to that screen right there from your first one that has your username on it.
Okay. You just need to close out of the red X that's in front of you. You're already there. You're good. You're already there. You just got to click your folder and drag it over.
Okay.
Click your folder, drag it over, and release.
Look more like that. So.
Now, I have a lot more than you, so you're not going to look anything like that. It's been a long time. Probably not. Okay, so everybody have this? All right, now what you want to do is click Create and Add. As soon as you do that, this screen is going to come up here, which you say, what happened? Nothing's happened yet. But what you're going to have to do is, where it says Summary and Description, you're going to put in, for summary, my first GitHub repo. My first GitHub repo. And put the same in descriptions. If you want to copy and paste that, put it in description, that's fine. So all I put in mine was my first GitHub repo on the top and also on the bottom. Yes, Mike. Anybody else need help? Yeah. Just click and drag the folder bin over to GitHub and then release it. Okay. Go ahead and do that again. Yeah, you're in the wrong area. You gotta click on repos. Click on, make sure it says repositories here. And then if you click and drag this over and click changes. Yeah, you guys might have to click changes on yours maybe. If you don't see what I have, you might have to click on changes. If you drag that folder and you don't see anything or don't see this screen, you might have to click on changes on the Macs that are in here. So everybody got that now? You see what I see? Okay, so go ahead and put in the comment, the top and bottom, my first GitHub repo, my first GitHub repo. Then you'll notice, we'll talk about this for a second before we use it. There's two buttons actually, a green button with a circle on it, and then a commit and sync. You need to make sure, and just kind of look at mine for a second if you don't mind, make sure yours does not look like this, okay? What this means is, if I don't click on this button here, I'm not allowed to commit and sync. I'm only allowed now to just commit. I want to always be able to not just to commit, but to commit and sync everything from my local Mac or PC to GitHub. Make sense? Because syncing means this. If you and I are working in the same group and in the same GitHub repository, and I just commit and I don't sync, I'm not going to get the stuff you already submitted, and vice versa. So syncing not only syncs what I've done, but it even syncs what maybe you've done in that project. And that's important when you work with a team of developers, which I work with all the time. And so when you're working with a team of developers, if you don't sync on a daily basis after every repo sync, you're asking for trouble. If developers wait 2 or 3 days to sync their code with their repository, that can cause a lot of headaches in your project. Okay? So just make sure, I always tell students, learn early, commit and sync often to any source control you ever use. Commit and sync often. In fact, say commit and sync often. That would be helpful. You might not care, but I do. Commit and sync often. Can you say that? Because believe me, working with developers, as I have, both public and private, committing and syncing is a simple task that you need to learn early, a habit, I guess a good habit you learn early. And when you learn early to do that, you know everything's good when you go to bed at night. You're not worrying about, oh no, I didn't sync it, and Joe's needing my code for tomorrow's project in the morning, and it's not going to be there. You'll literally remember it. You will remember it. Or you won't remember it, and then you come to work the next day, or you come to your meeting the next day, and Joe's not talking to you. And you're like, what happened? What do you mean what happened? The meeting went terrible. What do you mean it went terrible? You didn't sync your code last night. Oh yeah, I knew I forgot something. And so commit and sync is important. So again, just make sure your guys already like this. All that means is, notice my button changed from commit to commit and sync. Now let me look at this stuff down here for a second. Only thing we've done thus far is create a folder, right? That's all we've done. In fact, down here, you'll notice on mine and on yours, it should have in a grayscale kind of font, desktop, and then your name, first GitHub, okay? That's all it is. Now, everybody do this with me. Click commit and sync. And notice it says some changes or select some changes to commit. There's nothing in here right now, all right? Nothing in here. All I have is a folder. Nothing's in here. So what I'm going to do is go back. I want you to open up that folder that you've created on your desktop, okay? That folder on your desktop. And from your Mac, again, you're going to do a control click within that folder environment. Control click within the folder environment. In fact, let's do it this way. Trying to think here. Be the easiest way. I don't want to do another folder in there. Let's do this. Let's go to google.com and we're going to download an image and throw it in there. Just go to google.com. We're going to go to your favorite football team or whatever. Just make sure it's a clean photo here. We're going to download a photo and put it in that image, okay? Or put it in that folder. So I'm just going to type in lions, and I'm going to just download a picture of a lion. Let's do this one right here. Okay, I'm going to do a save image as. Nothing real fancy here. Going to my Conquer First GitHub folder and save it. So we're just doing a simple save image in that folder. And when you're done, you should see, hopefully, what I see, which is that image you just added should be to the left when you go back into GitHub. It should say whatever that image was, and it should say new to the left of it. And I'll come around and help to make sure you got that. We're just downloading the image from the internet, nothing real hard, hopefully, and download it, put it into that folder. And don't worry about naming it anything special, because as soon as you download it into that folder on your desktop, I want you to go right back into GitHub to make sure that yes, indeed, it did find that file, and it should say new. We got something to commit and sync. I'll give you a few moments to do that. Cool. And just don't click the commit and sync yet. You got to download it into that folder on your desktop. Where's your image at? You want it that way. Okay, so just control click on any of those images. Control click, save image as. You're going to go right to your desktop folder. Save image as. and then select desktop when it comes up for you in a second, and then save. Do it again. Control click again. Control click on the image, so you can do the save as. Control click, save image as. Okay, now select the drop down here. Yep. Desktop. Click on the folder that you just created and open it up. Double click on it, and then click save. Bottom right, bottom right. Okay, now go back to GitHub. All right, now do you see a new button to the left of your image? Mike, you guys have it? Got it? Okay, we'll just stay with this. All right, once you see this, just hang tight. Do not click the commit and sync as yet, okay? Just stay right here. All right, everybody got that? Okay, now that you have something to actually commit, before it was just an empty folder, and GitHub recognizes that, I don't have anything. So now we can actually commit and sync. Now when you commit and sync, stop there, don't rush now. If you already signed up for an educational account, you will have the option to make this public or private. Okay, and by default, if it's an ECO account already, an EDU account, the first one it'll give you is private. You want to uncheck private if it is private in there. All right. And what you're going to do basically is whatever you have in the name, I want you to put in the description. Notice mine does not have a private option because this is a public account. But yours might have a private option if you did click on that register for the EDU account. So make sure and uncheck it to where it is not private. It'll say if it is private, keep this code private, make sure it's unchecked. On the account, you'll notice I have 4 accounts. I want to put it in my personal account, which is ChuCon. You're going to put it in whatever yours is. You should probably just have 1, I'm guessing, by now, right? Then the last step we'll do is, once we name it, describe it, and by the way, what we're going to do with the description a lot of times is put a comment in there of what we've done with that change that we just did. Like we might put in there, add an image, or we might put in there, added a different function, or added a whatever to our app. But for this purpose, for the first repo, we're going to be real easy here, and just click Push Repository. When you click Push Repository, you'll see the pushing to GitHub spin for just a few seconds, and then go away, and that's good. And then you should notice that image that was down here is gone. It's bye-bye. If it's not gone, it did not commit and sync. So did everybody's image go bye-bye? All right. Next, go to the menu at the top of your Mac that says Repository. Everybody see that? Repository menu. It's to the left of Window, to the right of View. And then go down to View on GitHub. Repository, View on GitHub. When you do that, it's going to open up Safari or some browser and come to the sync repo that you just did. I'm going to walk around to make sure that's the case. It's going to be your name and the repo name. Then below that, it's going to have that repo name again with edit, then commit, branch, releases, contributor. Let's talk about that for a second. Click on the commit link with me. Where it says one commit. All right, so click on one commit. Everybody do that. When you click on one commit, it's going to have in that one commit that comment and description that you put in there. There's mine, which says my first GitHub repo. ChuCon authored this 4 minutes ago. It'll also have an ellipsis to the right of that. If I click on that ellipsis, it'll give me the description of that repo, which I put in there, my first GitHub repo. All right? Now, to go back to where we just came from, the easiest way to do it is click on the breadcrumb right here, which is your GitHub name. So click on that once. It's going to bring you right back to where you were. As you add commits, by the way, every time you add a commit, I'll click on my commit one more time. It's going to keep adding commits into this level to where you can see exactly what it is that it was that you submitted. Let's go to the next one, branch. Click on that one. One branch right now for most of your GitHubs, you're just going to have one branch per repo. What that means is you have that master code that you submitted from day one and you've not branched it off. The only time you ever branch, and we won't be even doing that this semester, is if I want to create a whole different version of an application, but I want to keep the old one intact. I'll branch it. My old branch stays the same. It might be development. My new branch might be live, as an example. Okay? But don't worry about that, but that's basically how branches work. Just like a tree. You have your trunk, your branches, and your leaves. In source control, your trunk will be the main source of your app. The branches will be all the different versions of your app coming out of that. And a lot of apps have multiple different versions. Okay? And developers will keep those versions separate from one another. That way, if they need to go back and roll back a version, they can by just going to whatever branch it is they want to go to, and they're good to go. So next, click on your link again for your GitHub. It'll take us right back. So we'll just keep clicking on this link up here that's your GitHub repo name to come back. It's kind of like the home link on a website. Releases. It says 0 because we haven't released anything. What this would be is when we're ready to go live with this, say it's for an iOS store, an app store, say it's a website, say it's a Ruby on Rails app, say it's a PHP app, whatever. We're ready to release it. We can release it right in here and put a version on it and create release notes. Click on the link. Next is contributor. Click on contributor. In the contributors list, you're going to basically have any contributors to this, which up to this point should be yourself. But if you have multiple contributors to this app, like I told the story earlier of the guy who put his wedding invite on there, he had over 1,200 contributors in a 2-week period of time. It'll tell you who those contributors are, what their commits are, any comments they made, any suggestions they made, will all be in there. Clicking back on my Conco First GitHub, and click back on yours. So that is the breadcrumbs to the commits, branches, releases, and contributor. You'll be playing mostly this semester, just to view anyway, the commit one. Okay, the commit one. You will not be playing at all with branching, releasing, or contributor much at all. But committing you will, just to make sure, hey, what I just submitted on my Mac, I want to make sure when I go in this to commit that it's there. Okay, that it's there. Does that make sense? So that's what you're going to use the commit for. Now go down further here. Notice here it says, my first GitHub repo, ChuCon authored 8 minutes ago. And then if it actually has the image that I submitted, I'll click on that image. You can click on yours. It should bring you to a page that, voila, loads that image up. Okay, and you can view. If we were to re-upload this image again and again and again, or if it's a file, we could actually click on a history of that, which right now we just have one because we've uploaded it once. But if we uploaded it 10 different times, we'd have 10 different iterations of when it was uploaded, who uploaded it, what time it was uploaded, and any comment they made to that. Click back on your repo again to go back to the home. So here is where you click on, as we'll do in just a second, you create an Xcode app in Swift. You can actually see all your code in here. Not only can you see all your code in here, if you wanted to edit your code, you could do it right here within GitHub. You wouldn't have to be in Xcode. You wouldn't have to be on a Mac. You wouldn't have to remote into here. If you knew what you were doing and didn't have to compile, you could just go in there and make whatever changes you want to. And then next time you're on a Mac, it's going to suck down the latest and greatest of that GitHub to your local Mac, and voila, you're in business. Now, do you have to have some knowledge of what you're doing before you do that? Yeah, for sure. But it's good to know you can use just GitHub on any device, Mac, PC, Linux, iPad, iPhone, Droid, because all these clients I just mentioned have GitHub clients that you can download for free. And I know a lot of developers, including myself, on lunchtime, I'll fire up GitHub on my iPad and I'll work on code. I don't need to have Xcode. In fact, the more you begin developing Xcode, the less time you compile. You're coding 8 hours of the day and maybe compiling a couple times, if that. Right, Mike? A lot of code, right? A lot of code you'd be working on. It might be days you're working on it before you ever compile. And so you're compiling now just so you're like, oh, what's this doing? What's this going to do? What's it going to do? But over time, you're going to know what it's going to do. You're going to know what it's going to do, and you're just going to go in there and just start coding. Does that make sense? So that's the power of GitHub too, if you think about it. As you learn the interface of Xcode and what it does and what Swift does, you'll be able to picture yourself 2 years down the road, if you keep developing, fire up GitHub from any device, from your iPhone, from your iPad, make changes and commit them, make your changes just like we did from the Apple Mac app on the GitHub app from wherever it was, and make those changes and commit them. So it's pretty powerful. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on this. I want everybody to do this. See where it says, help people interested in this repository understand your project by adding a README. Do you see that README button? Go ahead and click on that README where it says add a README. You won't see it if you're not clicked on, if you've not clicked on your repo name up here. You'll only see it if you haven't clicked. You have to be on exactly where I'm at. Click add a README. Then what I want you to do here is, you'll notice there is a, go back there to that, add a README. Down here at the bottom, you just start typing anything in here. Just go ahead and type in here, you know, something like I did it or something like that. I did it, exclamation point, okay? And then just click commit new file. I'll come around and help you if you need it. Okay, so now you'll notice when I go back to my link here, I don't see add README now. It's already there. README has been added. Okay, so let me come around and make sure you, where do I go to first to delete? Anybody remember? Thank you. Settings. Let's go to settings on the very right side of your screen. And it looks like a wrench here and a screwdriver. Click on settings and then scroll to the very bottom to delete this repo. And see if you remember my little tip I showed you earlier on how to delete a repo. By the way, the button will not come enabled until it's exactly the right characters, uppercase, lowercase, everything. Okay. Once it's been done successfully, it should say your repository with your username dash repo name was successfully deleted. I'll come around and make sure I see that. There it is. Your repository successfully deleted. Okay, does everybody see what I see on the overhead? Everybody got that? Okay, yeah, it's got to be exact. Still thinking. Okay, it's gone. All right. Anybody else need help deleting your repo? Okay, now what we're going to do is this. Minimize your GitHub account. And this time we're going to go and start up Xcode. So everybody start up Xcode with me. Don't worry about it. If you're not deleted it yet, don't worry. Just start up Xcode and we'll I'll show them how to do it later. Okay, so start up Xcode. As soon as Xcode starts up, we're just going to create a brand new project in Xcode. We'll create an iPhone app. So let's go to File, New, Project in Xcode. Make sure and select a single view application. So File, New, Project in Xcode, single view application. Click Next. And for the product name, we're just going to type in the best app, all one word. The best app, all one word, all lowercase. Swift language, iPhone device, and make sure use core data is unchecked. So again, the best app, all one word for product name. Your org name and identifier should already be in there.
We're doing the single view application.
Single view application. Rock Valley College org name, identifier edu.rockvalleycollege. edu.rockvalleycollege. And then make sure to select Swift and we want iPhone for the device. Yep. Go ahead and Xcode about. Desktop, go menu, applications. All in on Xcode. Did you get it in? Yeah. Okay, and then click Next. Once you've selected Swift, phone. So it's the best app, Rock Valley College organization name, identifier, edu.rockvalleycollege, language is Swift, and devices is iPhone. Use core data should already be unchecked. Everybody got that? Okay, click Next. We're going to select your desktop as the area on the left side of your Mac. Select desktop. We're going to save it. And then click Create at the bottom right of that screen. After you've selected desktop, make sure desktop is selected before you click Create. Now we're going to go to the Xcode menu and quit Xcode. Xcode menu, quit Xcode. Now, I've shown you how to commit things 4 times now. You now have a folder on your desktop, and I told you, and it's called the best app. You're going to take that folder and you're going to drag it to GitHub and see if you can remember how to commit that. Okay, that folder's on your desktop called the best app. You've done it a couple times now. Last time on your own totally with the image. This time on your own as well, but with the project. And for the description and title of this one, just name it the best app. That's fine. The best app on both. Make sure you submit it as a public repo, and I'll come around as needed. I'll give you a few minutes to see if you can figure it out. Same deal as we did before. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. So it's the best time as any now to do it on your own here with me being here in front of you. Once you drag it, if you're on the older Macs here, remember on the left side to click the Changes link. There's a Changes button on the left to see the change you just made before you see this screen here. Did you click on Changes? See it now? Did you get the prompt? need a prompt to say this is not a repo at first. Yeah, if we have time, we'll do it. Okay, let's look at that. For some reason. There we go. I just deleted the one you've done before and then resubmitted it on. I don't know what. There's a if you don't, when that prompt first comes up, you guys want to listen real quick. That when a prompt first comes up to accept this as a repo, if you say cancel or accidentally do cancel or on purpose do cancel, it won't prompt you again. Does that make sense? So once you drag a folder over, if you don't see this initially, once you click OK, you think you click OK, something's not right, and then you just basically start it over again. So I'm gonna go and commit mine real quick. Make sure it's public. And push it. Once it's complete, go to the repository menu, view on GitHub. Then you should see the result username, then the GitHub repo name that you just created. I think the internet's slow on some of these here. Yeah, yours is totally locked up. Just pushing it right now. So let's sit there. Okay, so basically, in a nutshell tonight, you've learned how to commit a repository, commit and sync a repository. What's the difference between commit and just commit and sync? Remember? Yeah.
Isn't it if you just do one of them, it doesn't put all the information on there, it just stores?
It'll put your information on. If you do a commit, it will put your information on there, but the sync part won't see if there's any new information on GitHub to come back down to your machine. If that makes sense. So you're committing and syncing both. Now, since you're the only one working on it, when you do a commit and sync, it's going to do commit, look out there, go, there's nothing else, and you're done. Okay, there's not going to be any syncing really, unless you made changes elsewhere on another Mac.
So it doesn't show the new material if you don't sync it?
Correct. If you've done it on some other machine, or somebody else in your team's done it on another machine. Right, it won't sync it. But you know, that's why it's important to do the green button first so you see that commit and sync both. So again, practice this. Let me show you real quick what I want you to do submit-wise if you've not already done this. If you go to week 4, after the reading screen here, the next slide in week 4, or the one after should have you submit, might be the one after, have you submit your username. Here it is. For in class, all you're doing for your in class is, we did the demo together. I want you to submit your GitHub username and the GitHub email you use below right now before you forget. before you leave tonight. I need your GitHub username, and I need your GitHub email that you signed up for that username, which the email should be your student at rockvalleycollege.edu account, but just make sure you put it both in there for me. Okay, so for in class, submit your GitHub username. Mine's ChewCon. Whatever yours is, you know your name. And Ben, what you can do, since you were signing up with yours earlier, finish up signing up to your GitHub name while I'm talking, and then submit that right now in this exercise. So what I need is with your GitHub username, what I'm going to do is basically go into GitHub, and I'm going to add everybody into the GitHub repository for iOS course. I'll do that between now and next week. And basically what that means is everybody in here will be a member of iOS course. I will go down in here, like right now, see I only have 2 members. Everybody in here will be a member as well. I have myself and Josh Curtis, which was in my last semester's class, which is still developing some apps from last semester. And he works here on campus, by the way. He's got about 3 apps he's working on right now with me. And so right now I have 2 members, but everybody else, as I get this filled in from your 4N class, I'm going to add you as a member. And when I add you as a member, that will basically give you rights to all the code in iOS course, as well as when we set up teams in the next couple weeks for your projects, you'll have your own repo in iOS course that you're going to submit code to for your final project. And then you'll have your own code as well in your private GitHub account. And so basically what it's going to look like is this. iOS course is the course GitHub account. It's called the organization GitHub account. Okay, organization GitHub account is iOS course. Everyone else is has, including myself, an individual account. All those individual accounts I will add to the iOS course organization. What that does is gives me access to your account to be able to create folders for you, repos for you. I can create final example apps for you. So whatever apps you're going to figure out you're going to create this semester or app, I can create unique repos and share with you. That way you can have access to that. And so pay attention to this real quick, because this is the most important part so far. iOS course is organization level. You're not a part of it right now, but you will be by next week. That's why I need you to fill in this screen here on the 4N class. You're here right now, individual level. I'll add everybody into iOS course. And after I find out what your final app is, you will need help. There will be content of your app that we won't go over in this semester. And I will specifically help you create code or example code to get you started, right? Example, last semester we had a student that did one on geolocation of waterways, and we didn't cover geolocation. So I had already just got through creating an app for a local company using geolocations, gave him that code and some more helps to get him started, and he was off and running. And so developers, what you'll learn this semester, if nothing else, besides how to get around Xcode and how to use Swift, is a community to help one another to get whatever help it is you need to get started. So we're going to segue here in just a second to your final app project. And the reason I wanted to say whatever help you might need, you'll get. Don't worry about if you've looked at, the chapter, you've looked at the chapter reading, you're like, well, this might be too much or something like that. Don't worry about that right now as far as your final app idea. I'll help you with that. Any code you might need, I'll help you with it. But the beauty of GitHub is, as I help you, I'll create your own little repos for you, share it, and then you can download those code as needed. So I'll come around and help and see if anybody needs anything before we segue into the final app project. Individual, Ben. Okay. You just got to complete the rest of it. Yep. Okay, so let's go ahead and segue into the final app project. which is the next slide. And again, make sure you've submitted your GitHub username and email before you leave tonight. But for time's sake, we're going to go right on to the final app project. So GitHub you're playing with. Next is final app idea assignment. Starting in week 12, you'll begin working full-time in the app of your choice. What that means is the assignments will stop in week 11, the canned assignments. On week 12, you will have every week 12, 13, and 14 to work on your app, where I'll be here every night, help you as needed, give you resources if whatever you need. But you can start working on your final app starting next week, actually. So that the assignments that are created starting in week 5 will have two options: a canned assignment that I've created for that week, or you can implement that assignment concept in your app. One of the two. Most students, I suggest, as much as possible, now there might be sometimes you won't be able to implement it because your app's not going to have that. So you'll do the canned assignment, okay? But if you can implement something we're doing that week in your final app, do that, because that's just going to be that much more time you have to spend in your final app. Does that make sense? The more time you spend in your final app, the better it's going to be when you start full-time working on it in week 12. All right, you're going to be that much better, ready to go. So starting week 12, you work on your final app on our classes. Last class of the week 15, actually this semester I think it's week 16. You'll present your final app before the class. So I want you to think of an app this week you're going to create and submit an idea below. Here's some suggestions to get us started brainstorming. Number 1, create an awesome app. All right, not a mediocre app. I want you to create an awesome app, something that you really can be proud of. Now, it can be a utility app, it can be a game app, but think of something really cool that you think is pretty awesome. Because if you don't think it's awesome, you won't spend any time playing with it. You'll be like, who cares? All right. If it's not a challenging app, you won't care. So make sure it challenges you and it's awesome both. Now you can have up to 4 people, or you can have yourself, however you want to do it. But you can. I've had students, groups in this class that went up to 4 people, and they worked on the app. One person did this, one person did this, one person did this, one person did this, the whole semester. The last 4 weeks of class, app store ready as much as possible. I will help you. The class will vote on the top 2 apps, and with my help, I can help you submit it to the App Store for the fall quarter. Now, I am teaching 2 sections in the summer of it's after this class, which is focusing totally on marketing, submitting your apps to the App Store. Both courses. I got a May term one, and then the second term summer course. I recommend you, if you're going to literally submit an app at any time in your life cycle of app development, I suggest taking it, because I go over my experiences with Apple, because it's constantly changing, and whatever time frame you take the class, you will have the newest and greatest marketing tools from Apple and my suggestions on, hey, here's what I just did last month when I submitted an app for X, Y, and Z company. Here's what I learned. I'm going to share it with you. And that's what that session is going to be like, 2 of them in the summer. Resources. There's an article. I'm not going to click on the resources, but I recommend you doing it. Great article on resources of app development, what makes a good app. Wireframing. A wireframe is one thing I suggest you do right when you get the idea. And a wireframe is, I'll show you a website here in a second, that basically it's like a template for your app, kind of like a digital napkin of your app, basically. That's how all great apps start, by the way. It's usually on a napkin or a piece of paper, or on the back of a cereal box or something. That's how most apps, like Angry Birds, that's how it started in Subway with the 2 developers on a napkin. That's how it started. They literally worked on that napkin for 2 weeks. So wireframe basically is a digital napkin, and I'll show you a prototype app that you can use to do that in a second. The App Dev website has tons of examples. I would say right now, this week, stay away from the App Dev website. It might confuse you more than help you right now. But GitHub, we've talked about already. It has full of app examples. I would say for this week, stay away from that as well, as far as searching for app types. Stack Overflow, stay away from this week, but it's going to help you as you develop, because you can ask any question development-wise, and there's answers in there other developers submitted. This one you can definitely click on and play with is creating an app prototype. Creating an app prototype basically walks you through how to create an app prototype using a wireframe app called fluidui.com. Fluidui.com allows you to take your idea and put it in a GUI interface that looks just like an iPhone or iPad, but it's not code behind it. It's just the interface. And so the buttons work and everything. In fact, I'll show you one here on the overhead that I've done in the past, and log in here. All right, so here's one here. Here's all the pages, okay? And what's cool about it is I can play here, hit the play button, and you can load this on a phone. It's called Caught Doing Good is the app idea. Click above to capture people doing good moment. The app's designed to capture folks you come in contact with doing good. So I can actually click on these. It'll take me to, clickable links basically. Granted, they're not the greatest, looking, but I can see the layout of the app, what it can do. And you can do all this within this app environment. Again, there's no code, it's just drag and drop. And you're dragging objects to objects for it to click. And that's called Fluid UI. And again, you can send this. What's cool about it, I can click the share button and I could send it to people I'm developing this app for and click on this link to preview. So I send this link to them in an email and they put it on their phone and start playing with it. They say, oh yeah, I like that. I don't like this. Oh, I like that. Can you move this here? Can you move this here? So before you've ever gotten to Xcode, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks is spent in this environment with your client working on what the app should look like. I suggest you doing that with your app idea for at least 2 to 3 weeks, playing with Fluid UI. And what's great about Fluid UI is it has iPhone apps, iPad apps. You can load it from your browser and just start playing with it. What's cool about it, I'll blow up this one screen here. Notice all the interfaces you have are objects you have to play with. You've got libraries of, bring up just the iOS library if I wanted to. Or if I go back, I'm not signing in my other account. Let me bring up just a mobile wireframe. There you go. And from here, I can actually bring in other objects. And the click event basically is when you click on an object, you can actually link it to another page, which I've done on this one. So this button goes to this page. Then on this page here, this button here goes back to this page in the home. So you basically click and things just work. Totally free for 10 pages, and that's called Fluid UI. So read that one. It's called Create Prototype. And I put in here the steps. Find an online tool like Prototype, create a prototype, share it with your team or with your family or friends. You can also on C, I suggest a tool called Wigio.com, which is a free collaboration tool where you can collaborate with people to give you app ideas and things of that nature. So Create Prototype, I recommend that one. App Ideas, this one here is basically called preapps.com. It's a new tool where I do recommend you looking at this one because you can choose a different type of app like iOS, whether it's going to be an iPhone or iPad, and you can search. These are actually real ideas that have yet to come to market that people have thought of, developers have thought of. People vote on the ideas, give them suggestions, and there's even people that back these developers and their ideas. So it's a great tool for creating app ideas or for thinking of app ideas. If you have totally no clue tonight, this is a great one to go to, pre-apps. These apps have yet to come to market, and they have top apps, app ideas, app news, services. So avail yourself to that. Because sometimes you might need to look at 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 examples to come up with one that you really like. A mesh of everything, kind of like, oh yeah, this is what I want. So what do? Glad you asked. Look at the App Store that we do each week. I didn't take time tonight because of time, but look at the App Store on the top apps that you want to create, the type of app you want to create. Remember, we've talked so far this semester of the utility apps, the gaming apps, the picture apps, the photo apps. Could be a map app. Could be a last semester a student created a radio stream app, a live radio stream of, the idea was to create a regional radio streaming app for Rockford that would pull in all the his stations that he liked into one app. So he had NPR, he had country, he had rock, he had jazz, all within this app. And I helped him find the APIs to plug in for those for that app. And it's almost ready for the App Store, by the way. So look at the App Store, get some ideas from the top apps. Talk to some people around you, your work, your family, your friends, tonight before you leave. Finally, decide on what kind of app you want to do. Don't worry about name right now, because name doesn't matter right now. Concept matters right now. Idea. Some of you already have an idea, I know, because I've talked to you. Ideas and concepts. Then create the prototype using that Fluid UI tool I told you about. And the links goes right there to that. The app must be ready by week 15. Now, is it going to be App Store ready? No, but that's the goal. That's your goal, right? Now, what I'll do is meet with each of you about week 13 and find out where you're at, week 13 and 14, and go, okay, I know you want to do this, but this is what you're going to get done. Okay? I know you want to do this. This is going to be version 1 for rollout for the end of the semester. Does that make sense? You can focus on the rest of that in the summer or something. And by the way, the app development license you guys have now, you will be able to use throughout the summer. And I will not take you out of the app dev repository till around October of this year. So you technically won't have to spend $99 until October if you wanted, you can keep working on your app all the way through then. Does that make sense? So that'll help a little bit financially. So 1 to 4 people per app. And then once you're finally done with the app idea, I tell you in here, app title, description, target audience. If you can't find a title, just put working title. But I don't want you to be caught up on the title yet. But definitely you should have an idea for the description of the app, what you want it to do, and your target audience. Now, target audience could be, kids, young kids, from 5 to 12. It could be, from 18 to 25 or whatever. It could be sports enthusiasts. It could be people who like to take photos. So nothing real mind-shattering on the target audience. Just so I know you put some thought into who would use your app. Because if you don't put thought into who you use your app, they're not going to use it. Okay? Because you have to target it towards that audience when you're developing it. And so app description is important. If you don't have a title by next Monday, when this is due, just put in there the idea you've got in the description and the target audience. Does that make sense? And for the title part, just put working title. That's fine. All right? So what I want you to do tonight is, before you leave, look around, because I know some of you have talked about apps already amongst each other. Some of you might want to work in groups of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. You don't have to. But irregardless, if you want to work in a group or individually, I want everybody to spend at least the next 5 or 10 minutes discussing app ideas. Say, oh, I've had this cool idea. What do you think about this? And just throw it out there, see what somebody says. And then vice versa, you tell somebody your app idea. Because I know everybody in here has probably 1 or more app ideas, because most students that take this class, one of the goals in the back of their head is, I want to learn how to create that so I can create that app idea, right? So I can develop and learn to create that app idea. And so does that make sense? 5 or 10 minutes, talk around those around you. You can get up and walk around if you want to. You don't just have to talk to those that you're left or right in front of you. So 5 or 10 minutes before you leave. And then homework for this week, that is the app, description, and target audience. You've already submitted your GitHub and email, so only you've got between now and next Monday is play with GitHub. Remember, I told you. Umpteen times. I don't care what you submit to. It doesn't matter what you submit to it. It could be a paper for work. It could be a paper for school. It could be an MP3. It doesn't really matter. Just practice dragging and dropping into that GitHub environment, creating repos, uploading, deleting, changing. You can even play with, which we didn't play with tonight, the page creation. That's where it went into the automatic page creation part. Read the help. It's pretty self-explanatory. We do go over in a few weeks, but if you wanted to go work ahead and you're like, oh, I get the GitHub thing, I got it. You might work on page creation. And I do also recommend it. It was in the week 4 reading, the GitHub Help link that goes right to the GitHub website. It has a really good topic by topic, what GitHub will do, answers any questions you might have. And also there's already a podcast out there for GitHub on how to use it I've created. And plus what we've done tonight will be out there as well. So any questions before I let you guys powwow for the next 5 or 10 minutes about your final app and final app idea? Any questions? Yeah.
Are you doing anything with the Apple invitation?
If you've not yet accepted the Apple invitation, please do so. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I've got about 2 or 3 that have yet to accept the Apple certification. And then also, before you leave tonight, who was it that needed an iPad before you leave? There's about 4 or 5 of you. Okay, cool. So you stay back, those 4 or 5 of you that raise your hand. Everybody else, do not leave. I want you to spend at least 5 or 10 minutes talking to one another about your final app idea, bouncing it off. You might, as you talk to somebody, you may not like, hey, let's do this app together. What do you think? Now, you might decide a week or 2 from now, yeah, I really want to do one by myself. That's fine. But at least get the ball rolling tonight. Does that make sense? Okay, go ahead and start talking.